Welcome back to another episode of the Lender Podcast. I'm Bryce Matheson, and as always, this episode is brought to you by Lender. Lender is a loan management software tool designed to help you with every aspect of your business, from origination to servicing to payoff. Lender helps you with document generation, helps you with collecting monthly payments, dispersing monthly payments to your investors, taking in new loan applications, giving your borrowers a portal that they can log into, giving your investors a portal that they can log into. Pretty much every aspect of everything that you do inside of your lending business can be done and facilitated through Lender. You can check that out by going to joinlender.com. That's LENDR, joinlender.com. Now, on to the episode. So I completely spaced it this week and I did not get a full podcast episode out, something that had some real life planning and dedication to it. So I apologize, but I still wanted to record something quick this week that is kind of front of mind that I was just encountering as I was talking to a couple different people over the course of the week. And I don't know if this will be helpful to anyone, but we had two different demos with customers who were going to be prospective customers of Lender. And one thing that I really tried to do is sort of like, sometimes I feel like I'm herding cats or I'm herding cattle, because the way that people operate in the private lending industry is so different. Just people operate so differently in the way that they charge points, or they do late fees, or they defer interest, or they collect monthly payments, or they defer interest for the first 3 months and then they collect monthly payments, and then they maybe raise money from their investors at this interest rate, but they pay them this interest rate on the back end. And it's so different. And we try to really not change people's processes necessarily, but almost coach them up to a level of like, look, this is industry standard. And we work with dozens of lenders inside of Lender, and there's very much a uniform way of doing things. Now, what I'm getting at is, as I was talking to these people, I ask them often, tell me how you operate. Tell me how you're structured. Pretend I'm a borrower. I come to you and I want to get a loan. What are the terms? What are the rates? What are the fees? What's the structure and the configuration? How do we do all these things? And there were two separate people this week that said something to me that was pretty alarming. And this is one group in particular. They said, we have most of our loans that we service ourselves, but we have 2 or 3 investors who do not want us to service their loans. And I kind of paused and I was like, hold on a second. Explain to me more what you mean by this. And they basically said, well, the majority of our investors that work with us, they allow us to service their loans. We collect the monthly payments. We give it to them. We send them a statement and a report, and everything is good. But we have 2 or 3 who don't want to do that, and they handle the servicing directly with the borrower. And so I kind of paused and I was like, okay, explain to me. And this lady proceeded to tell me that once per month, she calls the investor and said, hey, did you get your check this month? And he will say yes or no. And then he will, depending on what he says, she will wait and go into their servicing platform and mark the payment as paid, or they will not get paid. And then she'll call him a week later and said, hey, did you get paid? And then maybe he did and maybe he didn't. And then he'll call a week later and he'll say, maybe he did and maybe he didn't. And I was shook. I was like, no, whoa, no. This is not, I can't imagine operating a business this way. This is, it's just chaotic. And I said it more tactfully than this and nicer than this, but I was like, there is not a chance in hell that I would operate a business like that, because you're just making more work for yourselves. And so I said, look, I have a lot of investors who have a lot of different ways that they think that things should be run or operated. And I tell them, this is how we run, this is how we operate, and this is how our business works. If you do not fit into that model, that's okay, but you don't have to be one of our investors, because I do not have time to go and call you once per month and say, look, did you get your paycheck? Yes, no? Okay, no, let me call you again in a week. In what world does that make sense? That is not how we are going to do things. That is not how we're going to operate. Now, put a pin in that. And we had a very similar situation with, we were doing a a demo, and then somebody was talking about how they structure things. And they were talking about how they collect monthly payments, and they collect a check from this person, and they wait for a Zelle payment from this person, and they wait for a Venmo payment from this person, and then they sort of try to do ACH, but some people don't like it and some people do. And I basically had the exact same answer for them. I was like, no, there is no way for you to scale if you're not doing things in a uniform, like strategic manner. It just makes zero sense whatsoever. And so again, I tell people, I'm like, they've asked me and they said, well, what do you do if a borrower doesn't like that? And I say, look, if you're a borrower and you come to me for a loan and you will not accept us to connect to your bank account and draft payments via ACH, you will not get a loan from us. Plain and simple. If you want a loan, if you want money from us, you will adhere to our standards and the way that we operate and the way that we do business, because I do not have time for you to be a special princess and you're just off kind of doing your own little thing with your own little structure. That is not how we operate, and that's how I'm not going to do things. I also see a lot of lenders who do things with monthly payments that I think is kind of ridiculous. So, for example, oftentimes, and intuitively, I can see where you would think that would make sense. But what you would do is, let's say this loan closes on February 15th. Then your first monthly payment will be on March 15th, right? I mean, 30 days after, I can see how that would make sense. And a lot of lenders in the beginning think, well, this makes sense because then I don't have to deal with like prorated interest and partial interest and collecting this at closing. And it's just even, right? Because you just get a full month's payment of interest just the following 30 days. So I get it. But then you have a billing cycle on the 3rd for one loan, and then you have another billing cycle on the 6th for another loan, and the 7th, and the 9th, and the 12th, and the 15th, and 18th, and 21st, and 28th. Oh, but February 28th does not exist, so we're going to bump that to the 29th or the 27th just to like make, and it's pretty soon you've got 15 to 20 different payment dates, and it is a logistical nightmare. Please, 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 please do not do this. Configure all of your payments to process with the same payment method. Preferably ACH, because it will make your life so much easier. And then make sure that they're all configured to be on the exact same day. In my opinion, I think the 1st is the best. Do the 1st of the month. Have all your payments the 1st of the month, because it's so much easier. I can look down a line and I can see, okay, February 1st, February 1st, February 1st, 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 and then I can see this one failed or this one NSF'd. And so I can see, cool, all of my payments are good for the month, but I have 2 that failed and NSF'd. Whereas if I have payments scattered on the 3rd, the 6th, the 7th, the 9th, the 12th, the 15th, 18th, then I'm trying to think, okay, well, I have a 5-day late grace period. And so their payment was on the 12th, but now it's the 17th. So they're late to it. Just, no. Do not do that. The only way to make this a scalable operation and business that grows and makes your life easy to live and run and manage is by having a uniform operation where everything is consistent and cohesive and it just makes sense. So I don't know if that's helpful, but I promise you that this can be a really profitable, lean business with a lot of very minimal overhead. You can do just yourself and one employee or maybe a processor, and that's all you need. And it can be such a lucrative business model, but don't make your life harder than it needs to be. So again, I don't know if this is helpful, but this is the way that we run our business, and it's the way that I recommend you run yours as well, because it will make your life so much easier. If you have investors that say, we want to have you source the deals and I'll give you capital, but I want to service my own notes, I'll be like, you know what? I'm so sorry. Unfortunately, we don't do that, but here are a couple other recommendations of buddies that I have who will happily work with you or whatever. But for me, I don't have time and you don't either. So, like I said, this is not a full episode. I really apologize that I did not get one out this week. That was a little bit more well thought out and cohesive and planned, but this has been front of mind and it's something that I think may be beneficial for you. So, all that said, that is the episode for this week. Thanks for sticking around. We will catch you next week on the Lender Podcast. Thanks for listening.